Got the ball now on the offensive end, 2:05 to play. The Pacers lead by 8. Haliburton's on the logo. Off the Turner screen. At the edge of the arc, 7 to shoot. Inside the arc, pulls up, right wing, leans in, and gently scoops it off the glass. Final score, 121-112.
Boom, baby! That's how we feel!
Mark Boyle, Eddie Gill, cameos from Aaron Nesmith, and, of course, Slick Leonard. Pacers 1-0 lead now in the Eastern Conference semifinals in a dominant win. And I know dominant sounds a little bit ridiculous because it wasn't like they got out by 20 at some point and pulled away, and it's not like the game was never in doubt. But when you go into Cleveland, a team that won 64 games over the course of the regular season, a team that was completely non-challenged in round number 1, and a team that, yes, did not have Darius Garland, but nonetheless has very good shooters all around their roster. They have good size. You know, one of the ways, because one of the big storylines that we talked about, not just on this show, but virtually anywhere you turned, the big storyline that you heard regarding the Pacers-Cavs matchup was the fact that Cleveland had the very clear rebounding advantage. Cleveland had the size advantage. Indiana was going to have problems contending with Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, DeAndre Hunter, guys that play bigger than they are, guys that have size. And what's the best way, if you know that you are at a disadvantage when it comes to rebounding the basketball, what's the best way to avoid that and draw yourself even in rebounds? The easiest way to make sure that you're not being out-rebounded is to not create opportunity for rebounds. 19 of 36 from three-point range. 44 of 83 from the floor. And one aspect of the Pacers that I think is the most underappreciated, I don't think we talk enough about it, is how good they have become at the free throw line. There was a game in the playoffs against Milwaukee where they did not miss a free throw. Last night, 14 of 15. And there were stars all over the place. There were heroes all over the place, 6 in double figures, and your Indiana Pacers, for the 9th time in franchise history, the Pacers have gone on the road, and to quote Slick Leonard from 1995 in New York, they have stolen game 1. They absolutely stole it. And I know that Peter Vesey said, you can't say that Indiana stole that because they were in control the whole way. It wasn't like they snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. I get it. But anytime you go in on the road, in particular against a top-seeded team, and you get a win, it's a steal. You're not supposed to go in and win on the road. So the Pacers now have home court advantage. If they hold serve at home, then they're good to go. And the rest of the country, people from Spokane to Siesta, from Burlington to Boise, Flagstaff to Fargo, people are all watching the Eastern Conference playoffs, and you know what they're saying to themselves, Eddie? You know what they're asking themselves? When people are saying at their water coolers, at their bars, at the bus stop this morning, they're all saying, who do you think's going to win the East, and what do you think they're all saying to each other?
Why not Indiana?
Why not Indiana, baby? Why not Indiana? Why not those Indiana Pacers? Right? I'm hoping in Game 3, you'll be able to look through the crowd and see some why not Indiana. I'm telling you, this team, we talked about over the course of the season, there were question marks. There were times where the water got a little bit rough, but they're healthy, they're deep, and most importantly, they play well together. All cliches, I realize, but the reality of what we are seeing. Good afternoon to you. My name is Jake Query. That is the voice you just heard of Eddie Garrison. It is Query & Company here on 93.5 and 107.5, The Fan on a day where we look back at the weekend and move forward with the week, and the epicenter story is indeed the Indiana Pacers, because they are not just the storyline of the city. This is the storyline now. You hear it all day long and twice on Sunday, or all week long, every day of the week, twice on Sunday. You hear people say the Pacers don't get any national attention. The Pacers don't. Nobody talks about the Pacers. They're overlooked. Small market team. They're forgotten. They're overshadowed. They have no stars. I watched last night. I turned in to see Houston and Golden State in game number 7, and former Pacer Buddy Hield doing Buddy Hield things. And when I turned that on, the first thing I heard was Ernie Johnson saying, don't sleep on Indiana. Don't sleep on Indiana. This team can play. And I think people are waking up now. I mentioned this is the 9th time that they have won game 1 on the road in a playoff series. The other 8 previous times, do you want to guess how many, Eddie, they have won in those 8 playoff rounds?
I know the answer. So do you want me to give you the correct answer, or you want me to lie to you and say I don't know the answer?
Give me the correct answer.
That would be just one time.
That's incorrect. That's incorrect. How many times did they win the playoff series in a series where they went in game number 1?
Oh, the series. I was thinking of game 2. I'm sorry. I'm not sure.
4. They are 4-4 in a series where they won game 1 on the road. Only once, to your point, have they come back to win game 2 and go up 2-0 on the road. That was in 1994 and their series against Orlando, which kind of awakened the Pacers in their NBA playoff runs and all of those things. And then, the Byron Scott shot and all of that took place. Now, in game 2, and I'm saying this just strictly to kind of lay out where the Pacers are now. 8 times previously, they have won a game 1 on the road to start a playoff series. They are 500 in those series. As a result, they still lost 4 of those series. In game 2, they have lost the game 2 games. They are 1-7 in those game 2s. And the ones that they lost, they've lost by an average of 16 points per game. It is very difficult to turn around and keep your foot on the accelerator. But that's what they're going to do, right? Come back, win game 2, bada boom, let's go. Pacers and Racers. That's all. That's not all we want, but part of getting out of this round, you want to advance beyond Cleveland, because there's nothing better than having the Pacers in the playoffs like the week of the Indy 500. Carb Day, Pacers, it's the best. The absolute best. But that was a heck of a start, and we're going to unpack it, get reaction. Can we get Paulie to call in again? My boy Paul Ferreira. We need Paul to call in again. Paulie called in, was super excited about the Pacers, and apparently a knee problem he has, and then he wanted tickets to the Speedway. But at some point today, we'll take phone calls, and we will get reaction from people on their thoughts over the course of the game. The weekend itself. Eddie, did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, I did, Jake. How about you? How was the mini?
It was good. The mini marathon, thank you for asking. I think that the weather, first off, was perfect. It was perfect. Because the mini marathon is not temperature dependent. I mean, I've done it before where it's been really warm. I've done it where it was like sunny all day. I've done it where there's wind at your back and then wind, all of those things. It was the perfect condition from the humidity. There was just no humidity. So that makes it easier. That's probably the least that I have sweat during a mini. It was sold out, but I didn't see as many people I know. Usually I see a lot of people I know that are running it, or people had several people. One guy was wearing a Rick Smits jersey, gave us a shout out, actually said to me, Eddie, mile number 2.5.
Okay.
Guy in a Rick Smits jersey goes past, gives me a shout. Somebody else said they were going to call in because we do mixed paces. We ran the first probably mile. Then I do it with Mottman. We kind of do like a walk, jog from there. We mix it all up, right? And that's actually the way to do it, because I'll tell you what's fascinating about the mini, and we're going to get back to the Pacers game, I promise everybody. What's fascinating about the mini is you start out and you kind of notice the people around you. And then you do all kinds of mixed paces, whatever, and at mile 11 you look, and there they are again. So, and some people are running it the whole way, some people are jogging, whatever. So there was somebody that at one point while we were just, we're like, okay, we'll run to that tree, and then, we take a break, whatever. And that's, of course, where somebody's like, reaches out, you're like, Jake, you give me a high five. And I said, hey, man, you got to tell everybody I had a blistering pace when you saw me. We laughed, whatever. But mile 2.5, I'm back to running. And somebody goes running past me and says, where's the fella with the huge melon? So you got a shout out, Eddie. Got a shout out. And, of course, we did the shot of Cuervo tequila at mile 11. The dude that has the table set up goes through 4 handles of tequila. A lot of fun. Great fun. Got home, got something to eat, relaxed a little bit, then watched the Kentucky Derby. Did you watch, Eddie, the Kentucky Derby?
I did not.
You didn't watch the Kentucky Derby?
I was working.
Okay. The Derby was great. Muddy. The horse that won is a mutter, and his mutter is a mutter. Every horse in the Kentucky Derby was a descendant of Secretariat. Do we know this to be true, or was that just a stat that somebody threw out and everybody assumed it was correct?
Who knows, Jake?
Because
do they have like a Ancestry.com for horses?
Yes. Oh, are you kidding me? That's the big money in horse racing. I would like to know if anybody actually fact-checked the fact that everybody in the Kentucky Derby was a distant cousin of the other. It was a huge family reunion, right? They all had the same great-great-great-great-great-grandfather or whatever it is. That's probably true of all of us at some point. Scotty. What's up, Scotty? Scotty is the one that asked where the dude was in the big melon. Scotty is sitting right here showing his picture at the end of the mini. He sent it to me. Good-looking dude. Had on his blades, and Scotty went past. Scotty, it was great seeing you.
It's nice being known as the guy with the big melon.
Of course. But it was great. It was a great event, no question. And then obviously got geared up for it yesterday in getting set for the month of May and getting everything. I spent the vast majority of the day just kind of preparing everything logistically for that. Cleaning, getting laundry done, etc., because now it becomes a blur. And then buckled in to watch the game. And they got out to a very good start. Now, the thing about Cleveland and this matchup, I thought at the beginning of the game, I was very curious to see. That's probably going to be the only game that Darius Garland misses, I'm assuming. I'm assuming he comes back. And I'd like to see him come back. He's a wonderful player, and you always want to beat the best version of whoever it is that you're playing. You just do. And I think the Pacers are very capable of beating the very best version of who they're playing in this particular case. But the thing about Garland, if you look at Cleveland and the Pacers and the outset of that game, what Indiana continues to do, and I'm telling you, Cleveland's a deep team. They are. But, man, I don't know that anybody that we're going to see. I thought it was kind of talking to other – do you remember when I asked – I think it was Boyle. When we had Boyle on. And I said, if you're a team that has depth and you're a team that can go 9 or 10 deep in the playoffs, why don't you continue to do that if that's what works for you? And the answer, which is very, the right answer, I realize, was going into it was simply, well, because you have more time in between in the postseason, so you don't need to use your bench because you don't have to rest guys for as much. And I understand that. But it's interesting to me that clearly Rick Carlisle has not bought into that and has said, you know what, we're going to continue to do what makes us unique, and that is ride with all our horses. Use them all. And they did it again, and I think, truthfully, it wears teams down. I mean, they got, again, the Pacers got good play from Obi Toppin. Only 15 minutes, but you have to be aware of where he is at all times. They got good play from T.J. McConnell again. Maybe didn't score like he has done, like we've seen in Milwaukee, but you have to be aware of where he is, and he's facilitating a lot. Mathurin has that dog mentality where, yeah, he's a high-volume shooter, but again, if you look at Mathurin, and he's taken 10 shots over 23 minutes, so Mathurin, again, is a guy that you have to be aware of where he is at all times. So any player that comes into the game for Indiana, there's no waiting period. There's no back out period. There's not a guy that comes in where you say, we can lag off that a little bit. You literally are constantly aware of all 5 players on the floor. And the other thing that the Pacers do better than Cleveland, the assists. Indiana yesterday had 30 assists. You know how many assists Cleveland had? I mean, decent, but Cleveland comes up with 25 assists. So you're getting literally what? 20% more assists. Your ball movement and the way that you move the ball around and facilitate it, that's what is the secret ingredient for the Pacers, or not so secret now, I guess. It absolutely was the case with Milwaukee. Their ball movement and their sharing of the basketball, it's one thing to move the ball around and keep defenses moving, but it's another thing to move the ball around and know that all 5 players on the floor, there's nobody you back away from. McConnell's not a great three-point shooter, but you've got to be aware of where he is because he's going to do that little thing where he drives the baseline, circles around, and either pull up for a 10-footer or recycle the ball back out. So you've got to chase him no matter where he's going, and he's constantly moving. And then you can't leave Nesmith alone. You can't leave Toppin alone. You can't leave even – now Shepard is the one guy that probably has dropped off a little bit here, but he only got 7 minutes. You can't leave Mathurin alone. Nobody. And I truly think if you look late in that game, as much as playoff experience was a factor for Indiana to close it when they went from down 1 to, I think, up 6 in the last 3 minutes of the game, as much as they've been there before, the grit and the experience and the huge pair that goes into finishing games like that, as much as all of that was a factor, I think you also have to take into consideration that one of the factors down the stretch is that Cleveland was gassed and Indiana was not. Maybe I'm wrong, but they got fabulous play. And when are we going to now? Are people now aware of the fact? Have we now seen enough games? Are people aware of the fact that Miles Turner, a double-double for Miles Turner at 13 and 11 is different than a double-double for 90% of the players in the league because Miles Turner sets so much a tone. And, again, you are asking this guy to basically be your lone, reliable, rebounding guy. Yeah, Nesmith, again, was big on the glass. So was Siakam. But Turner dictates so much of what the Pacers want to do. Which leads to another thing, speaking of what you want the Pacers to do. We have talked about this for 2 years now, nonstop. What would you say, Eddie Garrison, especially last year, if people were going to critique or find holes in the game for Indiana of Tyrese Haliburton? What would you say is the one area that people would say Tyrese Haliburton fell short in terms of what you would want from him, in particular a year ago?
His defense, for sure. And his ability to defend on the perimeter.
And yesterday, I think that may have been his best defensive effort, possibly as a Pacer, right? Before the game, they showed Tyrese Haliburton standing with his hands on the net, like bending down, like getting ready for the game, and like stretching himself out. And he had a look of focus. And I'm sorry to bring up a belabored point, and I'm happy to say that clearly now we can move on from it. But there was part of me deep down that wondered what it was that would go through Tyrese Haliburton's mind about the fact that his dad was not at the game or not like visibly, whatever, and that storyline was that going to weigh on him because fair or not, tired or not, broken record or not, the reality is the story of his dad and then being basically put on a control chair by the NBA and the Indiana Pacers. I don't care who you are. That absolutely would weigh on your mind if you are any player. And so I wondered how he was going to react to that and what his mindset was going to be. And hallelujah, it appears as though the reaction, give this guy credit, was of total 100% focus. Total and 100% focus, because in terms of totality, in the round, the entirety of a game, 22 points and 13 assists, but the defense that he played, I thought Haliburton, that may have been his best game. He's had some great games and great moments, but in terms of a total package game, that was as good as he's had.
You don't often see him close a game because of his defense. You see him closing of his game because of his ability to set somebody up on the offensive side, or he's making a play himself to score. And, he had those two key blocks late to really put the game away, and then he really had the icing on the cake with a nice move on Jared Allen, got him to go up and just went underneath for an easy layup. He was fantastic all night.
Oftentimes he's making great plays because he's having to make up for a defensive lapse on the other end, right?
That's true.
Hey, Jake, can you please turn down the treble on your mic? Now, is there really anybody that thinks I have the ability to first off, I don't even know what that means. Is the now bass is the baritone, right? Treble, am I coming off, am I like the Chipmunks here?
No idea.
I've got a windscreen on. I don't know what else on my, I think I know, other than that, am I speaking too high? That would be a concern for me. Can anybody let me know? Is something popping? That's possible. I mean, I will tell you, it's May and it's a fog, baby. So it might be that my treble's too high, but I appreciate anybody that thinks I have the intellectual ability or capability to turn down something like that. But when the Pacers most needed it, they turn it up. Big show lined up for you today. Our friend from the Indianapolis Star, Dustin
Dopirak,
will join us on the program today. So too Mike Chappell, as we do each and every Monday. And we'll probably get plenty of fan reaction from the Pacers last night. But there was something that happened in the game. Something that happened in the game. Yesterday I was, and it was a perfect Sunday to do this. Yesterday was the perfect Sunday to kick back, kind of hang out, watch the IndyCar race or listen to it, and do a bunch of laundry, which I did, get everything set up for the next couple weeks, which I did, how about go to chicagospizza.com and get whether it be a carry-out or a delivery pizza, or maybe you wanted to go and get a pizza last night. It was the perfect day for all of that, to just be at home and then watch the game, which is exactly what I did. And I watched the game, and it was a game of kind of many runs, and the Pacers made the first run, and it got off to a very good start through the first quarter. And then, of course, you're just like, man, let's build on this, let's build on that. And something happened. I believe it was Bob Knight that used to always say it's the first, of course, every coach claims this, the first 5 minutes of the second half are the most important of a game. You want to set a tone. You want to make sure. And something happened yesterday from a guy that I'm ready to put a crown on and build a statue for in this game yesterday that set the tone for Indiana, and it's a tone that has been rising and rising and rising now for this team for some time. And I'll let you hear exactly what that was and tell you who we're talking about next. So one would think that that song, which, by the way, is kind of the walk-up music, if you will, the intro music for Andrew Nembhard, that was the guy that I'm getting ready to talk about. And Andrew Nembhard, I told you this last week. Somebody sent me a tweet, which I appreciated, that said, man, you're right. Andrew Nembhard has some Reggie Miller in him. I'm like, I'm telling you. That dude is cold-blooded. Like, when the shot clock's running out, there was a very interesting statistic that I think I've mentioned several times before, and I was amazed at the breakdown of this kind of stuff, especially for information that, from 30 years ago. But I had a conversation once about Derek McKee, and I was talking to Donnie Walsh about this, and I said, I always thought Derek McKee was an underrated player. And Donnie Walsh said, what's amazing about Derek McKee is his three-point shooting percentage was the highest of any player of his era within the final 4 seconds of a shot clock possession, or like in the last 45 seconds of quarters. The fact that was tracked blew me away. But it did make sense. You would think that would be Reggie Miller, obviously, but it made sense because what he was saying was there were so many times that McKee, the ball would rotate through in possessions that were faltering, and Derek McKee would end up with the hot potato when the shot clock was running out, and that's where he was just a very calm player. Nembhard is absolutely that guy. He wants big shots when you need that shot that is an absolute smack-in-the-face dagger to a team. Nembhard's the guy that can hit it. But one of the players that I have talked about for a long time, and I heard Kevin mention this morning, and I totally agree with him, and it's become something that now we can see before our very eyes, is the storyline of the 2025 Pacers. The Pacers, if we want to talk about the fact, they didn't steal game one. They didn't steal it because they owned that game from the beginning. It was theirs from the beginning. They came out and they set a tone, and boom. But I'll tell you where the steal exists for Indiana. They had 6 of them last night. 6 steals. But the biggest steal for Indiana came twice. The first was when they got Aaron Nesmith in the Malcolm Brogdon trade. And when they acquired Aaron Nesmith, you thought to yourself, okay, so they traded Malcolm Brogdon for basically a flyer in this guy that was a little bit buried in Boston, but was thought to be a good quick-release shooter coming out of Vanderbilt. And Rick Carlisle will tell you, they thought he had promise, but they weren't certain of how much he had, and that Brad Stevens was reluctant to rid themselves of Aaron Nesmith, but he was just log-jammed. So that was the first arrival of a steal. They kind of stole Nesmith in that regard, because Brogdon was in Boston, a year? And now is like on, third team since then, whatever.
He was a key piece in the trade for Boston to land Drew Holiday. So theoretically, they traded Aaron Nesmith for Drew Holiday.
So the second.
By the transitive property.
Nice work I could see the grin on your face there.
Thank you.
Here's where where the Pacers made a steal. Are you familiar last night? In that game, you watched the Cavaliers and the Pacers. Give me a guy that came off Cleveland's bench that you're like, yeah, he's out there, but he's just there.
Isaac Okoro.
Bingo. Do you know that Isaac Okoro makes $300,000 more per year than Aaron Nesmith?
Wow.
Do you know that Milwaukee doesn't even have anybody that makes Nesmith's salary, because they're all like Giannis is making 50, and then it's a bunch of guys on veteran minimum, and and Lillard. That's it, basically, right? But Aaron Nesmith is locked in for 2 more years at $11 million a year. And I have felt forever when the Pacers began this rebuild process. I talked to multiple people within the front office of the Pacers that said to me, what this team needs is a dog.
A DAWG, right?
Correct. Well, either one, a junkyard dog or a dog, right? The player that is willing to do anything, gets under the skin of people, and just does all of the little plays. And there's multiple ways to get under the skin of people. Bobby Portis gets under the skin of people by just constantly antagonizing and being a jerk. I'm not saying he's a jerk in person. I have no idea what kind of guy he is. But on the floor, he's a jerk. And he overdoes things, and he's Eddie Haskell out there, and he's always acting, he's getting right in guys' faces and getting his arms out and swinging them, all those things, right? Aaron Nesmith is, by all account, one of the nicest players in the NBA as a human being. But let me play for you something that happened yesterday in the game. This happened, as I talked about, the importance of the first handful of minutes in the second half. Indiana comes out. They have a 6-point advantage at the break. And you know that they need to do what they can to hold on to that. And you're everybody and their brother is watching that game and saying to themselves, Cleveland's going to come out and hit a couple of quick threes, and this game's going to be tied, and then all bets are off. And sure enough, they come out, and Sam Merrill misses a three. Now, granted, Turner had missed a three, I think. Mitchell had a three. They had several turns at the three, did Cleveland, to carve into that 6-point lead. And it looked inevitable that they were not only going to do that, but probably get some momentum and ride that wave. And then this sequence happened inside of 2 minutes of the second half of play.
Mitchell driving right into Haliburton, got to the dotted half and kicked it out to the edge where Merrill missed a catch and shoot three. Offensive rebound, Mobley, and from the blind side, Nesmith blocked Mitchell's three-point attempt. This leads to an Indiana break, and Nesmith takes a pass right edge of the arc and hits a three.
Beautiful sequence there by Nesmith. He comes back and recovers for the block shot, and Haliburton hits him in transition for the three ball.
He blocks a three-point shot, which was an unbelievable block, by the way. He comes up with it, goes the other way, Mark Boyle and Eddie Gill on the call there, and hits a three. I thought that was so telling in so many ways because there you go from potentially having your lead cut in half to now having a 9-point lead. And when you have that kind of cushion, and I really do think that play right there all of a sudden is like my sports analogy I use all the time. When Rocky gets knocked down by Apollo and Apollo goes to the corner and then turns around and sees Rocky getting up and Apollo has a look on his face like, you got to be kidding me. Like, he's still not knocked out? And in that case, I think Cleveland got the message right there. These guys are here to play. Because not Haliburton, not Turner, not Siakam, not the guys that on our scouting report tell us are the three guys that we have to prioritize worrying about. It's Aaron Nesmith, the $11 million a year, and that's a ton of money, don't get me wrong, but not in NBA terms. The $11 million per year guy, Aaron Nesmith makes those plays, and now what we've seen and what we know for certain is that he is the dog that they've been looking for. They were hoping. And he may not have the mentality of that, of being an antagonist, but on the floor, that guy does every single little play. Blocks a shot, gets the ball, immediately goes in transition, and then is able to pull up on the break and hit a three. And that is so symbolic. That right there was like a 40-minute or a 40-second encapsulation of not only who Nesmith is, but who the Pacers are. And I'm telling you, I hope everybody listening to my voice right now can find somebody in their life that loves them the way I love me some Aaron Nesmith.
Well, you've got me, Jake, so that's good to know.
Okay. I'm telling you. Like, if I went right now to the Pacers home court gift shop and they said, you can get the jersey of any player here, who do you want? Aaron Nesmith, baby. I love it. That guy is selfless. That guy makes plays, and he makes them in any way that he needs to win a game. Every team, championship teams, of course, You have a LeBron, you have a Doncic, you have a Steph Curry, you're going to win games. I get that. Great Hall of Fame players help you win games. But championship teams also, every championship team obviously has a mega superstar. But what they also have that people don't talk about is that 4 to 5 guy that is the I will do whatever it takes to win a game. And 100% Aaron Nesmith has turned into that guy. He is a massively critical piece to Indiana, and he represents why you should be saying to yourself, why not Indiana when it comes to who your favorite team is? So I want to hear from you folks. Let's celebrate it. Let's enjoy it. Pacers up 1-0. Great time of year. Month of May. Pacers up 1-0. Fever, we haven't even talked about, looked unbelievable yesterday. And we'll get to that. But I want to know your thoughts on the Pacers now 1-up on Cleveland and your apprehension or your confidence going into game number 2, 239-1070. There's your cue. Shout it out, baby. Let's celebrate together. Pacers up 1-0 on the Cavs. Fever with a resounding exhibition win over Brazil in Iowa City. Caitlin Clark hit one shot from just outside of the Quad Cities late in that game. They looked hard to know just how good, the Brazilian national team is, but Fever obviously looking very good. Pretty balanced in terms of their scoring.
Had an overtime win on Saturday as well at home against the Mystics. That started preseason action for them. Sophie Cunningham was a big part in that.
And their season gets underway in earnest when?
The 17th. They face the Chicago Sky to open the season.
239-1070 is the telephone number. The first caller that we have, and by the way, I will forewarn anybody who does call in, we might play Get to Know Your Listener as well. We have who lined up, Eddie?
Sydney.
Cindy
Hi.
or Sydney?
Cindy, C-I-N-D-Y.
See, that's always one that mental hurdle for me right there.
Cindy, just think of Cindy Brady, Eddie. Hi, Cindy. How are you?
Hi.
Have you called the
I'm
program
great.
before, Cindy?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so for a second there, I thought maybe we were going to get to 20 on our female listener count, but still sitting comfortably at 19 female listeners, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, not a new caller.
Actually, hold on, Cindy. Can you do a huge favor here for me, if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
I'm going to put you on hold, and when we come back, I want you to change your name and act like you've never called the show before, so we can pretend we have 20 female listeners. Are you willing to partake in this little exhibition?
Of course.
Okay, hang on just a second, Eddie, if you could. Okay, 239-1070 is the telephone number on this Monday. Pacers up 1-0. Let's just go right to the phone lines and see who might be calling in. Line one, we'll go roulette style. Who's this?
Denise.
Hi, Denise. Wow, Denise, I had no idea that we have female listeners of the program. You are female listener number 20. How do you feel? Is that okay? That you're female listener 20?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm also a season ticket holder, so yeah,
Wow.
huge fan.
Let's go here. All right. So, Denise, how long's your radio been broken that's forced you to listen to this program?
Well, couple years.
Okay. Well, hopefully hopefully you consider it to be sufficient. So what do you think? 1-0. Your thoughts on the Pacers Cavs?
Well, I'm always a believer, and so I always think that the Pacers can win no matter who they're playing. So of course I was very optimistic. So the game last night, I just kept waiting for the Cavs to make a run, and like normally happens in NBA games and like with the Cavs, and it just kind of never happened. So I could not have been more excited about the Pacers play last night. The threes that kept going down were just amazing to me, and the guys just seemed like they were so ready for the game. And I don't really know what was happening with the Cavs to make everything work the way it did, but I loved it. And getting the road win, of course, was just huge for the team. But one of the things that I wanted to get your thoughts on is, people seem to have kind of changed their opinion after game one. People were saying Cavs in 6, Cavs in 7, whatever, and didn't seem like they were really looking at the Pacers very seriously as far as a team that can beat the Cavaliers. So I'm just kind of wondering, what do you think changed for people to now look at the Pacers and say maybe they can get past this round?
Well, I think certainly. And by the way, Cindy, if I see you at a game, if you could come up and introduce yourself as Cindy Denise. Can you do that? So then if you say it's Cindy Denise, I will immediately know who it is, right?
I'll have to know where you sit because I'm in 2.
2, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in 3. No, I'm sorry, I'm in 3. I'm in the corner.
Okay. Look for me. Do you go to the little restaurant area before the games?
No.
Okay. I'm always
I'm
in
not
the
that
little.
privileged.
Well, I'm not either, right? But it's all luck of the draw. Just to the, if you're looking from 3, I don't know where it is, but like when in between the Pacers bench and the scorers bench is where you'd find me. But if you see me in the concourse, see me anywhere there, come up and say hi, Cindy Denise. I will say this. I think that the narrative about the Pacers has changed, especially from a national standpoint, because they don't see them a lot. I think it comes down to that. They do not see them a lot. And I think there is still some hesitation about what one game, because one game does not a series make. And what one game means, I think there's still a lot of curiosity how Cleveland's going to respond. And they're going to have Darius Garland back, who I think in terms of attacking offensively and then setting up and facilitating for their outside shot, that becomes the real challenge. Now, they did a good job, did Indiana yesterday, of, letting Donovan Mitchell get aggressive into the rack offensively, and it's almost better off that way because you're not then getting it out to all of your three-point shooters that you're facilitating towards. But Garland does a very good job of that, and they have to be aware of it. And I think there's a lot of hesitation to anoint too early for Indiana because you want to see what they're going to be like with Garland. We'll go with Mark up next. Mark, what's up?
Hey, how are you?
I'm all right. Yourself?
I'm good. You enjoyed the game, I take it.
I did.
Great game. Awesome game. One thing we have is we've got a lot of chemicals in this team. Very deep. But you got to have the mad scientist to put everything together. And coach. That's Coach Rick Carlisle. He's a big part of this, and we haven't been mentioning him at all. I just think that he's brought a lot of excitement, a lot of class, and he does it the Indiana way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mark, I appreciate the call. And certainly Carlisle, who, this is a coach that, won the title in Dallas, obviously. Then there was a lot of discussion on how long it had been since he had won an opening round series. I remember the day that he left Dallas, immediately there were those in the Pacers brass that were like, they got to get Rick Carlisle. They got to get him. And they did. And he's been very, very good. He's pushed all the right buttons, no question about it. And I think he was the right guy for that because he was a veteran. Let me tell you something interesting. When Rick Carlisle was originally bypassed for Isaiah Thomas, the Pacers knew that they were entering into a time where Larry Bird had left and they were transitioning, if you will, their roster from the veteran Reggie roster into like the Jermaine O'Neal, transitioning into a younger team, and they knew that that was going to be rocky. And Rick Carlisle had yet to be a head coach then, and they wanted to get a coach that would, knowing there was going to be rocky road transition, they didn't want to harm Rick Carlisle's prospects long term as an NBA coach somewhere if it didn't work out in Indiana at no fault of his. So he eventually went to Detroit and then came back to Indiana, and he has been, now obviously he has the tenure as such to be able to, have a voice that those young players that have come together with this group buy into. Totally good way of putting it. Mad scientists working the chemicals. Let's get to Angie real quick. Yeah, hold on. Are we at 21 here? Hi, Angie. How are you?
Hi, Jake. Can you hear me?
Holy cow, Angie. Female listener number 21. Have you called the program before, Angie?
I have not called before, but Cindy Denise encouraged me.
Wait a minute. All right, I appreciate that very much. All right, Angie, did you watch the game yesterday?
Absolutely.
Okay, your thoughts overall. First off, Angie, do you enjoy listening to the program, or you're not you're listening like not against your own will here? This is voluntarily that you're listening to the program, right?
Oh yeah. I listen to all three programs as much as possible.
Okay, well
so
we've
I don't get to listen to you as much during the middle of the day unless I'm traveling or something, but otherwise, yes, I listen to all three programs.
Well, we appreciate it. Great. I can speak for everybody on this radio station, Angie, in saying that we are happy to have you on board. Your thoughts overall yesterday on the game?
Obviously, great win, huge win to take game one. I think one of the things that I was kind of surprised about, they were talking about the depth of Cleveland's bench and not really talking about, I guess, or maybe giving our bench as much props, and maybe, like you said, it's because they haven't really seen us. But I think they're starting to, they, meaning the media, I think are starting to figure that part out, that we are deeper than what they expected. And the other thing was, I think towards the end of the game in the fourth quarter, I think you could really tell that a lot of the guys on Cleveland were gassed.
Totally. And Angie, I think that I appreciate the call. It's two things for the Pacers. It's two big strengths for the Pacers. The first being their depth that wears teams down, and the second being they force you to run all over the place in terms of the way they play offensively. And You're right. I mean, a lot of people might not realize that, but they're figuring out, right? Why not Indiana, Eddie? Right?
Where the F is my shirt, Jake?
Let me order you one. How's that?
Well, I mean, I thought you would have the inside track there. I thought you would at least wear your shirt today. Matthew from Lane is wearing
I know.
his shirt before you.
I just came up with the idea.
Like, what are we doing here?
The shop's the one doing the shirts, but
Well,
I'll see
it's your shirt
when
idea.
I go get one, I will get you one. How's that?
Okay.
All right, Matt, Jacob, Brian, stick around. We'll get to you as well. And now, which one? I know we had to jostle things around a little bit, right?
Chapel. Mike
All
Chapel.
right, so we'll get to Chapel as well. We'll do it on the other side here on a Pacers victorious Monday on the Fan. Thank you to Don, who called in during the break. Don delivers milk to Firefly, which is very much appreciated. And thanks to all who donated for the month of April in our fundraising efforts for Firefly. I'll have to find out what the exact totals were, but Bruce Kidd, who has a heart the size of all of the donut counties of Marion County, was a spearhead figure in helping us out and helping the kids over at Firefly, so greatly appreciated. 239-1070, the telephone number. We've been talking about the Pacers' big win yesterday, and Jacob joins the program. Jacob, what's up?
Yes, sir. Let's go Pacers.
I met a Jacob over the weekend. It wasn't you, was it?
Probably no, it wasn't me, unfortunately. But I hope to be there either Friday or Sunday at the game, so maybe we can run into each other.
It would be absolutely awesome, no question. Jacob, let me ask you this: your favorite Pacers who?
Oh, Benedict Mathurin by far. Like you said, he's got that dog in him. I'm gonna have to disagree with you. He had the play of the game, down by 1 in the 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That huge block, coach's challenge. Obi Toppin comes out of the timeout. It's a dagger 3. I think that just deflated the entire team and the arena for sure.
Yeah, well, they had several plays in the last 5 or 6 minutes for certain, right? I mean,
Right.
It was, it's funny, Jacob, because when you're watching it, you're every time that they would make the play that you would think to yourself, okay, this is the knockout blow. You kind of want another one, though, right? Because you're like, I don't know, though.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
But a lot of fun, though. Overall thoughts on the game itself before I asked you your favorite player.
Overall, I mean, had control the entire time. We knew Cleveland would come with some runs, but we just have the bench. And if we can score 110 points plus every single game, I don't see us losing. No team, it's playoff basketball, defensive minded first. No team can keep with our run and gun type. And you saw that on our fast break there at the second half. Like the previous callers said, that they're getting tired. So as long as we can keep running and getting those fast break points, I don't know the difference, but we probably had more than 10 or 12 fast break points than they did.
Yeah, and listen, and the other thing I appreciate, Jacob, just their ball movement in general. Like you go up against Indiana, you're going to be running all over the place, bottom line, and it's what's awesome about it. Love it.
So to answer Jacob's question, fast break points in the game, Pacers 15, Cavaliers 14, so it wasn't that big of a discrepancy. I thought early on the Pacers' pace was their style in the first quarter, which allowed them to get out to that big lead, and then Cleveland started slowly dictating the pace, and I think that's what allowed them to come back through quarters 2 and 3. But I thought the Pacers, Jake, did a really, really terrific job closing each quarter. They didn't let Cleveland have any momentum going into the next quarter.
So I'm telling you, the Pacers are a team now where you look at it and you're like, if they can just get within the last 2 minutes of a game, they got a huge advantage for certain. The Colts have an upcoming rookie mini camp to discuss, but before we do that, we bring on Mike Chappell from WXIN and Fox 59 and CBS 4. And Chap, I'm going to begin actually with staying on this theme. I know you obviously watched the Pacers yesterday. Just your overall thoughts.
It's funny how when people and I understand the argument, public funding of stadiums and sports was out of whack, but the vibes around Central Indiana and Indianapolis and all that, whether it's the Colts making a run, which they haven't in a while, or the Pacers, it's undeniable, and there's just a bounce in your step, and it's just cool to see, and the impact goes far beyond that. It really, when you've got successful franchises, it just adds a quality of life to your community. It does, and I understand people who push back against that, but that's what's so cool. And it's funny how it always used to make the late great David Benner just mad as heck when the Pacers got the short end of the stick on attention, and they did, but he would really enjoy what's going on now and the focus on the Pacers, and that's why in my lane I hope the Colts find their way back, because there's nothing better than playoff buzz and relevancy around a franchise. So I think it's cool. And it's still, I'm still not sure everybody in the NBA is taking the Pacers serious. I really don't. But they've gotten Cleveland's attention, and it's going to be a fun series. I thought maybe Cleveland in 6. Now maybe, I don't know. You steal home court, and who knows? So I think it's fun. I watch them, and it's just fun to watch, and you can feel the energy. And most of all, this is a team that you like. There's just players you like, the way they do things. The way it still drives me. I was gonna cuss, but it drives me crazy how a team can work so hard to give up a good shot to get a 3-pointer. I mean, they drive the lane, and that's a pretty good shot for a layup, and they kick it back out, and then the guy drains a 3. So it's all analytics. I know it is, but as long as they're making shots and playing defense the way they are, they're going to be a tough out.
Do you believe – here's an interesting one for you, Chap, and I don't mean this to not in a negative way, okay? But I always found it fascinating. The Colts do a really good job of, like, sending out a tweet or something like that when the Pacers are playing well. The Pacers do the same of, like, having Colts players courtside and recognizing them and et cetera. And I know that there's, like, this, to your point, when it comes to civic pride, there's a symbiotic relationship between the two biggest pro sports franchises in town. But do you think there's also a little bit of – rivalry is the wrong word – but do you think that the success of one further accelerates the desire for the other because they're like, man, like we want to be the top player in town?
It should.
Does iron sharpen iron, to use a Chuck Pagano quote?
Yeah, it should. And I've always said that, like, again, back with the Colts, their expectations every year should be competing for the AFC South at the very least. And this is not still a tough division to win. So it should be, and when you don't get there, doggone it, you should be disappointed. And normally, and that's how it is, and that's why 4 years without the playoffs is just unacceptable on so many levels. But I do think now it's not like internally there, personnel-wise, they're thinking, man, we got to get this thing back because the Pacers are doing that. There's not that, but and it's to have expectations to be relevant. And the worst thing in pro sports or any sports is to not be relevant and be an afterthought. That's what you can't do. So I don't think they internally are motivated that much by one of the other just because they're having that success. But you want to have it internally on your own. But no question, when one franchise sees the other franchise having success and sort of, grabbing the attention of the fan base. Now it's seasonal. It's seasonal. There's no reason for the Colt fan base to be, gathering at the stadium right now. But there's got to be some friendly competition, and one can't push the other, although in different ways.
Chap, here's a question for you. I've thought about this a lot, and I think I've come to the conclusion of what I think is the best answer. But I'm curious your perspective, okay? From an NBA standpoint, if you have to gauge it based on annual competitiveness, number of times to, try to win a championship, how bad the worst years have been, like how low it has sunk, etc. Who is the Pacers' NFL equivalent as a franchise?
Oh, good question. Boy, I was going to say Green Bay because they've always been the high expectations. They've never gotten there, but Green Bay's higher.
And Green Bay's won it.
Yeah, but I mean, a long time ago. That's a really good. I need to think about it. You throw that at me. Not Houston because they've been bad for so long. The Chargers, maybe the Chargers.
Chargers isn't bad because they're never terrible, right?
Right.
The Chargers is actually really good because they've been to, the Chargers have made a Super Bowl but didn't win. They're really good year in and year out, right?
Maybe the Dan Fouts Chargers to where didn't they do this? No, they're the Phillip Rivers Chargers where they were really good. They were really good, but never that good. So, yeah. But I think the one thing the Pacers did, and I'm not a Pacer historian at all, but they never decided to blow it up and say we're going to have a 4-year run where we're going to just suck.
Well, you know what's interesting, chap? So you're right. I mean, they masterfully transitioned from the Reggie Smits era into the Jermaine O'Neal, Steven Jackson, Ron Artest era, with Reggie being the conduit, right? The one area where they did kind of blow it up is where they had Domas Sabonis and Miles Turner and just said, you know what, this isn't going to work, and they traded Sabonis, which is how, and then Haliburton is here. And they basically, and I have never before, chap, and you tell me if you ever experienced this in covering the Colts. I had never seen this before, but 3 or 4 years ago, at the beginning of the season, the Pacers held an informal meet and greet with Rick Carlisle, Kevin Pritchard, some of the members of the staff, and with the media, where they basically said, hey, listen, we need you guys and gals to let our fans know that we are starting over here, and it's going to be a process. And that was the first time I ever remember a cognitive, we're blowing this thing up. And they had just drafted Nembhard, and it grew before their very eyes, I think, faster than even they expected, and here we are, right? And it paid off.
In me, I was thinking, and if I had more time, I could have thought more about it, but has there been a player that so many people wanted to run out of town, and Miles Turner is still here, and he sort of defied all the critics, and I've been one of them. I always wanted more from him, but doggone, he's an awful good player. I can't remember if there's a cult like that where people were just done with it. Just get him out of town. I don't care what you get. And all of a sudden, he's a stud. And I think what Turner's done, persevering, and I know he's listened. He's had to have heard the rumblings about getting him out of town and get something for him. But what he's done for this team, to be a three-point shooter and a rim protector, is so rare. I think what they've done is really, really good. Siakam is I try to. He's such an efficient scorer, and you look up, he's gotten 25 points, and you're thinking, really? It's just the way he plays. He's not Roger Brown. That's totally different. Roger Brown was one of the smoothest, least effort guys that would just cut your throat out. But Siakam, he's just that guy that he gets you 22, 25, occasionally 30. So this is a team that's easy to like. Mathurin still drives me crazy sometimes because he's got the way he's wired. He's just different. However, it is, and you need that on the floor. But it's really hard not to like this team, and I hope this is the start of the second round that carries over. I've always said the easiest game to win on the road is game one.
No, you're right about that. And
so that was a great chance, and I'm glad they finished.
So, Chap, they have in their history, the Pacers as an NBA franchise have won game one on the road in a playoff series 8 times. They are 4-4 going on in those series. They have only once won game 2 in that situation, and they have lost game 2 by an average of 16 a game. So usually you turn around and reality kicks in for the home team, and then you come back 1-1. But they did what they
and also human nature on the road team as well. We did what we were supposed to do. We had a split.
Right.
Instead of coming back and say, hey, we grabbed this one and we got him by the throat.
Now,
so it depends on which human nature is stronger. I'm guessing the survival tactic with Cleveland's going to be stronger than the Pacers wanting to go up 2-0.
My buddy Neil Brown, the chef extraordinaire, pointed out that at the end of the game he noticed that Haliburton, when he did his interview, that Siakam walked over, said something to him, and the two of them just walked off, and it was almost like they were saying, look, man, this is just 1 of 4. You know what I mean? We still got work to do, which I like that aspect of it. Mike Chappell joining us, WXIN, Fox 59, CBS 4. All right, Chappell, let's get to the Colts question of the week, which would be, rookie minicamp starting, I believe, this week. First chance to kind of get to see – I think we know what Tyler Warren's going to be. Right. Who most intrigues you, or which pick maybe most intrigued you where you raised an eyebrow and thought, maybe not where I would have taken this guy, but I'm curious, or they have a good opportunity? I mean, what jumped out at you besides the dynamic tight end position?
Probably DJ Goodens, the running back, was at Kansas State, I think, because I've got to get up to speed on my rookies. But he just had a prolific career in college, and he's the runner, receiver. Got to work on blocking, but they all do. Even when they signed Herbert as the veteran backup, we all expected a young prospect out of a deep, running back class. And I tell you, they're going to ride Jonathan Taylor. They are. I mean, he's going to get 20 carries a game just because he's that good, and if he can withstand the load. But you still need time in a game to where you give him a series off, not a quarter, but a series off. And running backs get hurt, so I want to see if this guy can be. And he's not like Naheem Hines at all. Hines was just different, but you need that young guy that can come in and really. A short time, but if Taylor misses a game or two, that this guy can step in and be a factor. I think he can. And they still want to be a run-first team. They want to be a run-heavy team, and you need a couple guys that can do that. So Giddens is the one that kind of has my eye.
And Giddens is the one. I mean, wouldn't you agree with this chap? And he's got to know this. If he can come in and not only spell Taylor, but also be a guy. He caught 58 balls in college.
Right.
And I have no idea how much that means he's a quote-unquote receiving back, because he averaged 6 yards a carry as a runner. But I would think that he or his agent or somebody is saying to him, hey, you become a reliable guy out of the backfield catching the ball, you're going to have some spot in the rotation here in Indianapolis. And I would think that that's got to be one of the things that they're curious to see how much he can do.
And you've always got to have that young guy in the pipeline. I mean, like I said, again, Taylor's a guy, and I think he's under contract for 2 more years, I think it is. And I'm not projecting that when Taylor's gone, this is your one at all. But you've got to have somebody you're developing. But yeah, they need. That's I was going to say the one soft spot in Taylor's game is receptions. Well, that plus pass protection. So that guy needs to be able to come in on third down and not only be a receiver, but pass protect. And again, the whole thing about football, NFL, whatever, is you don't put your guys in position to fail. You don't have Dallas Clark, who is a great receiver, blocking a defensive end because he's going to get smoked. So you've got to have your third down back be able to, yes, be a threat, but also be able to hold up in blitz protection, and that's what they've had trouble with. So yeah, this is a great situation for him. Maybe it's one of those where if you're the agent, like you said, you think of all the places he could go, this is pretty good. Yeah, they got Taylor, but you always need that extra guy. And the one thing most teams are like, and the Colts certainly are, is if you can play, they're going to play you. It doesn't matter if you're a first round, fifth round, undrafted guy, you're going to get a chance. And if Sykin sees that this guy is a viable option in the offense, he will get on the field.
Okay, Chap, I did this story a number of years ago when the Colts and Pacers there was a time there where both of them were the best team at the same time. The Pacers were, starting out a year where they were on fire. The Colts were obviously like 10-0 at the time. So I did a story at the time when I compared each Pacer player on the roster to who their equivalent was for the equivalent for each team, okay? So, having said that, DeForest Buckner is the clear elder statesman, leader of the Colts. So he's Pascal Siakam, okay?
Right.
Tyrese Haliburton, a lot of talent, probably had some back issues, played through it. When he's good, he's really good. He's Michael Pittman, okay?
Okay.
Having said that, you said Matherin at times drives you a little bit crazy, but the talent's there. That's what Colt?
A.D. Mitchell. That kid's got so much talent. I hope he comes back this year and we really see the talent and not the mess ups.
Okay, how about this? Andrew Nembhard has skill. Each year you see more of his skill, and you wonder how in the world he was acquired as late as he was. And he seemingly has no ego or nerves and just makes plays when you most need him. He's what Colt?
Josh Downs.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Yeah, that's good.
Now, he wasn't a late. What was Downs at 2 or 3? I can't remember what he was draft pick wise. But when you need to play, Nembhard, it's amazing how he lists his games in the playoffs. It's just amazing.
And we're hoping that Anthony Richardson, we can say, is Jarris Walker, because Jarris Walker, I was waiting on, high draft pick, highest rated recruit, at least coming out of high school of anybody on the roster, and it's starting to show for him, and now he's a guy that's making some plays for him, and we'll see whether or not Anthony Richardson makes the same step.
Yeah, the only difference there is that if Jarris Walker falls off, there's not going to be as much of a repercussions if the other guy doesn't.
And I was thinking about this, Chap. Somebody asked me, as I'm sure they asked you, who's going to be their starter day one. If it's a tie, it goes to Richardson, right? I mean, Daniel Jones has to really outplay him in camp, because if Daniel Jones is not your starter, it's not a big deal. If Richardson's not your starter, it's a massive deal.
I agree, and I don't think this starts off 50-50 or you got, it's not like a guy gets a 10-yard or 10-meter head start on Rich Eisen in his 40-yard dash. But I do think that inherently, Richardson has to have an edge because of him and what you have invested in him. I think it needs to be a clear winner. And the problem is, and then if Richardson is the guy, he's got to be the guy to where 3 games really good, then he's got the bad game, and you don't want to always be talking to Steichen. Well, what do you think? Are you close to going to Jones? That would be not good. So as we talked, it needs to be Richardson for so many reasons at so many levels, and I hope for the franchise that it is. Nothing against Jones, but this is about Richardson and whether he can be the guy this year moving forward.
Mike Chappell, CBS 4 WXIN, Fox 59. Always a pleasure, and we'll keep the Pacers rolling, all right?
Sounds good to me. Be well, guys.
All right, Mike Chappell joining us on the program. Joe, stick around. We will get to you. We'll continue talking about the Pacers, Cavs, and take a look at what happened yesterday in Birmingham and how that transfers now to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We'll do it all in just a couple minutes here on The Fan. Halfway through the show, Pacers up 1-0 on the Cavs. We've talked plenty about it. Haven't really recapped the weekend much. But obviously yesterday, and several people have asked, I say several, like 3. But, hey, wait a minute, Jake. Were you not in Alabama? I was not. And I'm sure I probably maybe belabored this point even way too much. But the mini marathon, the first time that I did the mini marathon was, I think, 2010. This was the 15th, so do the math. But
did it because you wanted to do it, or
no? It's a good question, Eddie. Actually, I was in my mid to late. I was like 37 or 38, and I never thought I would be able to do it. It just was the thought of doing a mini marathon. First off, I couldn't figure out why I would want to do it. But I always thought that was seemingly impossible. I remember when I worked at Hardwick's Pipe and Tobacco, the cigar store in Broad Ripple, and on the Saturday of the mini, people would come in to get a celebratory cigar or whatever, and my boss, Joe Moran, was a runner, and, just hearing all the conversation about it, I just remember thinking, like, there's no way I could do that. And eventually I got to the point where I just realized I wasn't in very good shape. And so I started running to get in shape and lose weight. And the more I started running, the more I thought maybe I could do this. And so I signed up for the meeting. I didn't tell anybody I'd signed up, but I just signed up and did it. Just went out and did it. And then I thought, well, if I did it last year, I can do it this year again. And so I signed up the next year. And I missed year number 3, and then after that, I've done it every year since. But as you know, Eddie, I mean, you've heard me mention this before, but it was the number one thing when my health was in jeopardy. My first thought was, I want to be able to still do the mini marathon.
Well, don't undersell it, Jake. It was your life in jeopardy, not just your health.
Well, sure. I mean, you're right, honestly. And I just remember I was like, I want to do the many. And so as I was sitting there and, it was spitting out the result on the EKG that I was having a 100% blockage heart attack. And they said, we got to take you in right now to do this. And I said, well, if I get out of this and I survive this, will I be able to do the mini in 6 months? And Mottman said to me, there's so much that goes into that. That's impossible to know at this point. And that's when I said to him, okay, but if I do, I will do everything you tell me to do to put myself in that position, but I want you to do it with me. And so he's done it every year with me since. And this was our 5th year doing it, the two of us. It's actually the best time that we've done since the times that we've done it. And it was a great event. But for that reason, when IndyCar's schedule was such that the Barber Motorsports Park race, the Children's Hospital of Alabama Grand Prix in Birmingham, was this weekend, I said to the guys, like, listen, I really want to stay back and do the mini marathon, and they were totally cool with it. They're like, totally, we get it, completely understand. So I did it. We had great fun. It was congratulations to all who did it. And let me say also, I saw my buddy Big Mike passing out water. I saw Trucker Rob and his wife were at Allison passing out water. Several bands that were playing. So if you are somebody who was one of the people in the bands, one of the people on the sidelines, one of the people passing out water or Gatorade, it is very, very much appreciated. It's what makes the event a great event. And then yesterday, watched the race and listened to it with the guys and saw Alex Palou win in dominant fashion. Joe wanted to discuss that as we're in the month of May as well. Hi, Joe. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Big Renus VK fan here, and I think what he did yesterday, holding off power on cold tires, was, incredible. So, A, was it incredible? And B, what's another sports equivalent to what he did yesterday?
Okay, really good question. I think the sports equivalent would be, and I'm trying to think of, a team with less salary. It would be kind of like if the Kansas City Royals was able to, make a run, right? But for those that are unfamiliar, Renus VK, very, very talented young guy from the Netherlands. Arie Luyendyk kind of took him under his wing, brought him to the IndyCar Series, and got into the IndyCar Series, eventually got a ride with Ed Carpenter, ran with them for a long time. Do you know this? I don't know if you know this, Joe. Renus VK is the youngest driver to win a sanctioned event in the primary sport of discipline at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, because he won the IndyCar Grand Prix there when he was either 18 or 19 years old. You are right.
When his dad started crying, that's what made me a fan. He's just a dog. I just love him.
And he's a super, super nice guy. I say kid. He's not a kid anymore. But, yes, for those that don't know, so now he is running for Dale Coyne, lesser-funded team, and he was trying his hardest to get up to the podium and chasing down Scott McLaughlin, and it looked like he was going to be able to do it. But that is a team that doesn't have the resource and the monetary funding of like Penske, for example. So when he is on tires that were wearing out, and that means all of a sudden now it's like trying to race on hydroplaned water, you're sliding all over the place, and to hold off Will Power while chasing McLaughlin and getting with 3 or 4 more laps, maybe he gets him, was very impressive. And I think, and I noticed they mentioned this with his contract up at the end of the year, it was 2 weeks left in the season when all of a sudden he got his opportunity. And so for that, the chance that he signed a 1-year deal with Dale Coyne, which is a lesser funded team, and that's not a disrespect to Dale Coyne, but that's just the reality. And Dale Coyne's very smart at getting, Justin Wilson's driven for him. He gets really good drivers to drive for him. But it was impressive yesterday. And I think shows to a lot of people that VK, as they mentioned, is going to be, again, a free agent that is very coveted at the end of the year.
Now, have they raced on an oval yet? I can't remember.
They have not.
Okay,
excellent question.
So the 500 will be the first oval. I know historically Penske has dominated in the ovals as of late. Do you think Palou should be considered the front runner, or should it be Pato? Should it be Newgarden? Should it be somebody else?
I think Palou's the front runner, because not only has he been, people forget Palou started on pole a year ago, and by the end of the race, and he had a kind of no fault of his own pit incident that dropped him back, and by the end of the race he was running pace as fast as anybody and finished, I think, either 6th or 8th. A lot to know, Eddie, between now and then, because what we have to find out is, Palou's in a Honda. The Penske's are going to be in Chevrolets. We'll find out how that factors into fuel efficiency and straight line speed and those kinds of things through practices. But Palou is so dialed in and has been so close already at this track that it feels like a fait accompli that either Pato or Palou is going to win one here soon. McLaughlin's, I think it's those 3 are the front runners right now. Newgarden has won 2 in a row, right?
Mm-hmm.
But McLaughlin's his teammate. McLaughlin, was the pole sitter a year ago. So I'll put those 2 as kind of interchangeable, McLaughlin, Newgarden. Pato is going to be hungry for it because he's knocked on the door now multiple years, and we'll see, and then Kyle Larson. I mean, there's a ton of storylines. Kyle Larson as well running for McLaren because that team is going to be so good.
And I know that we've got to hit a break here in a second, but when you look at the standings, you hear Alex Palou, and nobody really knows anything about Christian Lundgaard. He's second right now in the standings, and it's Kyle Kirkwood, Pato Award. So it's been a really slow start for Team Penske.
Without question. I mean, now, first off, Lundgaard, total talent. Christian Lundgaard is a guy that, he's Danish, comes over. He ran for Rahal Letterman, and I think when he and ran what typically was their fastest qualifier and finisher, and that team during the time that he was there, and there was some surprise when he left to go to Arrow McLaren, but he is it's certainly on road and streets, he's been unbelievably good. Now, he doesn't have as much oval experience. I remember the year that he was a rookie, he started in row 11, and I was doing the fastest rookie luncheon and was asking each rookie what they thought about it, about the start, how nervous they were, and Lundgaard said, I mean, I'm starting like dead last, so there's really not a lot of pressure. I just let everybody go and then play catch up. And he kind of did, and he was fine, right? But very, very big talent. Big talent. That team's really good, Arrow McLaren. Jonah, stick around. We'll get back to you. Pacers last night, a couple of keys, I think, that enabled Indiana off to their 1-0 start over Cleveland. Back into that next. When you think of Cleveland, the city of Cleveland, Eddie, what do you most think of?
Ooh, I'm not sure.
The river burning, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Disappointed sports fans?
I mean,
don't know.
that's way up there, right? Loyal sports fans. Cleveland's a bigger city than, it's almost a region, really.
We got to ask John Fanta.
Yeah. We should get John Fanta on just to boom, lane train. John Fanta's videos during the Guardians playoff run were awesome. But it's interesting because I think most people would think of the Guardians, obviously formerly the Indians, or the Browns long before they think of the Cavs. And yet the Cavs are the one that brought, a title to Cleveland. But still, I think of it as and listen, Cleveland Browns fans deserve all the credit in the world. And there is an element of Cleveland that I really respect because it's a city that's taken its fair share of knock and criticism and everything else. And it's a pretty cool place. I've had some fun times in Cleveland for certain, no question about it. But we'll get back into Pacers Cavs in a second. But John had another comment regarding IndyCar and perhaps either the race yesterday or the upcoming race that will be taking place. Hi, John.
Hey, how are you guys today?
Doing well, thank you.
Real quick, Kyle Larson this year, if he successfully does the double, is that no matter where he finishes at, is that going to be the recruiting tool to try to get more drivers, not only try to qualify for the Indy 500 and drive, but drive IndyCar full time? Say, hey, you know what? My contract just ended up here, ended in Formula One. Maybe I'll sign a 1-year contract with an Indy team and see how that goes, and then maybe move forward from there. I mean,
Well, let me ask you this, John. When you say successfully does the double, you mean simply finishes both races or wins?
Successfully finishes both races.
I don't know because Kyle Busch did it and Tony Stewart did it, right? John Andretti did it. I mean, in other words, it's been done before. I think the biggest – here's the thing, John. Back in the day, the Indy 500 was scored as a Formula One race. And so you got a Formula One point for being in the Indy 500. And the Indianapolis 500-mile race was as big, if not bigger, than being a Formula One driver. So, I mean, you look at 78, Mario Andretti ran Formula One but had someone qualify his car for him so he could also run the Indy 500. I mean, there was a time in motorsport when to win the Formula One World Championship, you were hoping that allowed you the opportunity to get a ride in the Indianapolis 500. I think now for a lot of drivers, it's you want to win the Indianapolis 500 so that it can afford you the opportunity to perhaps try in Formula One. The most Formula One, not most, but a lot of the Formula One world champions and some of the biggest names eventually tried their hand here. Juan Manuel Fangio came over and was in a car. And
say that name 5 times in a row.
Juan Manuel Fangio, Juan Manuel Fangio, Juan Manuel Fangio, Juan Manuel Fangio, Juan Manuel Fangio. Okay. Was that 5?
I think so.
It's one of my favorite names to say, clearly. But he
sounds like you're the lady on the phone in Charlie Brown.
It kind of does sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, right? But he was an Argentinian, renowned world champion in Formula One, and came to Indianapolis, I believe I'd have to look at the years, but I want to say 58 off the top of my head, and went through, I believe, a practice, never actually did a qualifying attempt. But there were a number of Formula One drivers that came over here, and that it's obviously, I'm not going to say it's a bygone era, but it's a great question, John. I think what right now you would want is for Kyle Larson, by doing the double, if he were to win it or if he were to run up front or whatever it may be, to then entice or wet the whistle of NASCAR drivers and get that kind of crossover. I think you start there before you try to get those from Formula One, because Formula One drivers are just not used to running on a super speedway high banked oval.
And they're not used to running that fast either. Oscar Piastri was asked about it this past weekend in Miami for the Formula One race, and He was like, yeah, I don't see myself doing that because what the Formula One cars average, the IndyCar are 20 miles per hour faster on their lapped average. Oh, no, Oscar said the fastest that an F1 car can go is 20 miles per hour slower than the average speed of an Indy car. So he didn't feel like he called, was it psychos crazy? Called him crazy?
Yeah, I mean, well, the thought of going side by side through the turns, I mean, that definitely weighs on them. Formula One cars are faster through the gearbox because they are designed to be able to, from a standing speed, to take off and then get through the turns quicker. But on straight line oval speed, advantage IndyCar from a speed standpoint. Jonah wanted to talk Pacers. Jonah, what's up?
Hey, Jake. What's going on?
You're looking at it. Now, Jonah, we're inside, so I can't see outside. I know that it was cold and clammy this morning. Are things clearing up? How are we looking?
It's still pretty cluttered outside, but it's much better than yesterday, so I can't complain about that.
All right, fair enough. Your thoughts on the game?
I got two topics, actually. One thing I've noticed with the Pacers, they're a fire extinguisher now. 2 years ago, when the Cavs made the run yesterday to make it a 4-point lead, and you had Donovan Mitchell that was just like amping up the crowd, years past, the Pacers would not come out of that. So to see them put out that flame is unreal. Milwaukee came in, 8-game win streak. Okay, we won 4 out of 5. Cleveland, they dismantled the Heat, which I think the Heat put in their G League team because who the heck were they? So I'm loving this team, growing and maturing before their eyes when things are going against their way. And the Cavaliers had a moment where it looked like they could pull away, and the Pacers were like, nope, we're putting a stop to that. But another thing I want to say is, now I want to preface by saying I don't want this to happen. I'm not glad it happened, but in the second half, the Pacers won the physicality battle between the Cavaliers, and Allen and Hunter both took nasty falls yesterday. And again, I hope they're okay, but keep an eye on that in game 2. I wonder how that's going to affect them because they both got up slowly, and Allen really was a non-factor after that fall.
Yeah,
and
I was surprised he got up as quickly. As quickly is probably the wrong word. But, Jonah, to your point, great points. And with Allen in particular, when he fell on his back like that, I mean, definitely it was like, whoa, wait a minute. And you are correct. He stayed in and played 30 minutes, but they got out physical a little bit, for sure. And, yes, the Pacers found the perfect solution to making sure they don't lose the rebound battle, which is to make shots, right? Because they shot – 57% from three-point range, and they still ended up with the same number of rebounds as Cleveland. But very good points about them. I like fire extinguisher is a good way of putting it. It's a very good way of putting it. They closed. They never allowed, as we played earlier, they never allowed Cleveland to get, I shouldn't say get close, because obviously ultimately Cleveland ended up with a lead there. But the Pacers answered down the stretch, and I think they are just wearing teams down. And I love their depth, and I love the fact that they take advantage of that depth by using guys all the way through.
So, like the Reds back in the day had the nasty boys in the bullpen. We need to come up with something for Nembhard and Nesmith because they both start with A, and their last names both start with N.
Not and one, because that would be and one.
No.
How about this? I got it. Like Greg Brady, baby, I got it.
Okay.
This is as good as Why Not Indiana? I got it. I'll tell you next.
Turner drives to the wing, pitches it to the top. Beautiful ball movement with Siakam from the top. A touch pass into the near corner, and Nesmith hit a three.
Absolutely initiated by the shot fake by Turner in the far corner to put the Cavs in a bad way.
And now a lob inside, but Allen misses the left hand off the pass from Merrill. The Pacers up 9, moving right to left. 7:29 left in the third quarter. Haliburton near corner, drives the baseline, hooks it back up top. Nembhard right back down low in front of the rim. Turner passed up a shot and sent it out to Nesmith, who hits another three.
Yeah! Yeah!
On the steal, Jerome with it, bouncing to Hunter, and Hunter takes it in right side. And then as he got to the rim and tried to finish the play, Mathurin with a spectacular block shot, and the ball went out of bounds off of Hunter. Jerome swings to Strus, and Strus had his three blocked by Haliburton again. Turner caught the ball in the lane. Boy, Haliburton has made some plays.
Yes, he has.
He's got the ball now on the offensive end. 2:05 to play. The Pacers lead by 8. Haliburton's on the logo. Off the Turner screen. At the edge of the arc, 7 to shoot. Inside the arc, pulls up, right wing, leans in, and gently scoops it off the glass. Final score, 121-112.
Boom, baby! That's how we feel!
Pacers are up 1-game love on the Cleveland Cavaliers. We talked about the fact that you had mentioned, Eddie, two of the real key factors for Indiana. Their leading scorer yesterday, Andrew Nembhard, their kind of X-factor dog, if you will, Aaron Nesmith, who I thought had a spectacular early third quarter series where he had the block, then came down, hit the three. So each time that Cleveland had a run, you would say that a team does what? When a team like, you would say, well, they came down and they did what? So-and-so had a 5-0 run, but then the Pacers came back and they immediately found the
answer, responded.
Or, in this case, answers. The answers.
Okay, that's not bad.
A-N for Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, and then Sirs, the little, I don't like the Sirs thing, but the little apostrophe C-E-R-S. So each time the Pacers needed it, they had answers.
That's not bad. That's not
Come
bad.
on now.
That's not
Somebody
bad.
else said the Annihilators, which is also not bad. But I kind of like my answers. The Pacers have answers each and every time. Joining us now, and I'm sure having answers for our questions. He is in Cleveland. He is from the Indianapolis Star. Dustin
Dopirak
joins us. And my understanding is he is inside the team hotel in the lobby hanging out. How are things, Dustin, there at the Howard Johnsons of Lakewood? Everything okay?
Yeah.
They still got the continental breakfast in that joint?
They do. The bagels are terrific.
That's good. Yeah, you got to, make sure that, you might want to toast them ahead of time, but yeah, they're fine, right?
Exactly. It's important. It's important. They've got the, the waffle thing and the whole bit. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, here's the deal. Pacers, 8 previous times in their franchise history, have won a game 1 on the road. They have surrendered 16 points per game in the 4 losses that they, or actually, I take that back. They've only once won game 2 on the road and taken a 2-0 lead. That happened in Orlando in 94. Every other game, they lost by an average of 16 per game. Point being, typically teams that have home court advantage to start a series turn things around pretty quickly and figure it out for game 2. So what does Indiana build off of from this game?
Build off of? Well,
what do they do differently? What is Cleveland change that Indiana, in other words, Indiana's going to have to counter in some way. What can they do differently, or do you like their chances of just sticking with that exact same plan?
Yeah, they're obviously going to have to adjust, and they're going to have to prepare for adjustments, and some of it is just going to be sort of reading it out of the gate to say, okay, how is this team going to be different? What are they going to operate differently? How, basically, it's like, are they going to be tougher as far as how they cover guys like Nembhard and Nesmith? They're going to be a little bit more up in them. How do they change defensively? What changes basically if they get Darius Garland back? There's going to be a whole bunch of things that they've going to be able to prepare for. I think it's difficult to kind of get a sense, okay, like what is that going to be? Like they know it's going to be something. I think they have to presume that the Cavs will be better prepared for the level of pace. And having a better sense of what it's going to take to keep up with them. They might go a little bit deeper, just ask some more guys to play to kind of keep guys fresh. It's hard to kind of get a sense on like what's going to be different, but I think you also know if you're the Pacers, you also have a sense of you can't expect to win the 3-point battle by 30 points. That's going to be really difficult to maintain. And you have to make your own adjustments. I mean, they just gave up 70 points in the paint, 21 second chance points. They've got to get better. I think they have to know that the advantage they had is also not going to be the same. Again, you can't bank on 19 threes. I mean, as excellent as they were, and they came in rhythm, and they came off of good offensive energy, you just can't trust that many to go in on a nightly basis. That's just a big number, and you certainly can't trust the Cavs to only make 9 of them. So you have to presume the Cavs are going to make more shots, and you have to take away what they're doing. I think that's going to be more of the issue. At this point, they're kind of saying, oh, we look at things too, things we've got to fix, and they're basically saying like that point in the paint number and those second chance point numbers are definitely ones that they're concerned about. Usually you don't win in those scenarios. You also don't win if you lose the turnover battle as bad as they do, because Pacers never turn it over like that. That's different. And for them to win a game when they lost in all 3 of those categories and lost by a lot is obviously an issue and something they've got to go fix. So they're thinking about fixing that as much as they're preparing for whatever the Cavs are going to do different.
Do we have indication yet as to whether or not we will see Darius Garland in Game 2?
I don't know, because we had to leave Cavs availability to come to Pacers availability. That was kind of a late breaking thing. So we were sitting at their facility and kind of had to leave. So I don't know what was said. I don't know what Kenny said. I don't know, or if he's even been on yet. So have not seen yet the situation with Darius Garland. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar deal to the last game where it could be a game time decision, because it just seems like there's something that's nagging, and it's also an issue where, as Atkinson mentioned, it is a thing he's got to push off. But basically, Garland does a lot of cutting, a lot of explosion. And it is kind of a more sensitive, a toe becomes a much more sensitive thing when you play the way Garland plays.
Do you believe, let's just say, because I think it's going to be the case, that Garland plays in Game 2 and moving forward. Now, sure, you've got to come off the toe injury, but Darius Garland is an elite level player. It changes Cleveland how? Or for Pacer fans that are not as familiar with it, Dustin, we're going to see what area that Indiana needs to adjust to with Garland out there versus what we saw yesterday.
Just gives you a more overall, just dynamic score. I mean, basically, the lineup they put out, to start the game, yesterday, basically, you've got Mitchell and then you've got 2 shooters, and neither one of them made a lot of shots. I mean, Max Strus and Sam Merrill are 2 guys who tend to be knockdown outside guys, and they were combined 4 of 13 from 3. And so you take out, one of those guys, insert one of them in the second unit, and certainly they'll certainly play minutes together. But it adds more shooting in the second unit when you move, probably Merrill back there, and then you have a more dynamic guy who can get to the rim, can also shoot. Garland didn't shoot it as well late in the season as he did early, but he's a guy that can get his own shot. He doesn't have to wait for ball movement to find him, and he can get to the rim, and you have to deal with Garland and Mitchell. And that's the other thing too, is basically they're testing Nembhard and Nesmith, where both of those guys are going to have to really work to get them going at the side. Which one, who do you put on which guy? Whether do you go Nembhard on Garland and Nesmith on Mitchell would seem as more natural, but Nembhard's been the better defender. He did a pretty good job against Mitchell, basically in Game 1 when he was on him. So you got to kind of make those kind of choices, and you still got, Strus is a shooter, and you still got to deal with Mobley and Allen. So you just overall got more firepower in there. You got Jerome kind of playing more second unit minutes. It kind of solidifies that second unit a little bit more as well. You don't have to dig as deep. So, I think there's just a lot of pieces that he makes fit together on top of just being a dynamic offensive player.
What was, Dustin, in game number 1, what was the thing that Indiana did or maybe didn't do that most surprised you?
I guess didn't. I mean, the turnover number surprised me. But I think it's not so much what they did, it's how effective it was. And it's not so much that it's surprising, but it's just you watch these guys, and you watch them all year, and you think, okay, you know what they're good at, but you don't realize how much it bothers other teams. And I think what struck me was just the degree to which the Cavs came out of that saying, wow, that pace is really something, and we weren't really prepared for it. And they play with that. They play with that kind of speed, but you don't think of teams as just not being able to handle it all, and especially an elite team like Cleveland coming out of there and saying, wow, okay, that hit us harder than I expected. And because that's what they were already talking about. They knew That's how the Pacers played, and they really kind of felt like they got worn down, and basically they just were not able to keep up. So I think that I guess surprised me the most, that it was just that effective, that they started that strong, they were hitting shots out of the gate that quickly, and that they just for as much as the Cavalier crowd was into it, I mean, the Pacers really matched that. I think it just struck me as just how experienced they are now. Just how much they've grown up in these situations, that they're not afraid of this, and the Cavs are aware of it. I think it was interesting to hear Donovan Mitchell call them experienced and say, this is a team that's really been there. And like, yeah, I guess they have. And they went from very inexperienced to very experienced pretty quickly.
Were you surprised, Dustin, that so far in the playoffs that Rick Carlisle has kept the same level of rotation that he used? We always hear that rotations tighten in the postseason, and that has not been the case for the Pacers. He has managed to keep it the same level. Does that surprise you?
Yes and no. And it surprises me, and it doesn't surprise me in the sense that he hinted at it. And it's like one of those things where, like, you sometimes just, obviously just from dealing with him specifically, you kind of don't know what's signal and what's noise sometimes. You're like, is he saying this to throw me off, or is he saying this because this is exactly what he's going to do? And he actually just floated something that you're going to come back to later and realize, like, he was actually telling you what he was doing before. He did say, early, because we've spent so much time asking about Jarris Walker in particular, and Ben Shepherd, and also Ben Mathurin, because you're always asking about particularly the lottery picks and how they're going to be used, because in some cases they haven't had the same kind of miss you would have expected by now in terms of their trajectory. But he just made a point of saying, we're going to need all 11 of those guys, and you're like, okay, like maybe he means that throughout the postseason, like sometimes each guy's going to get used, but it's like when he's literally playing 11, you're like, I guess that's what you meant, and so it is a surprise because it does usually tighten, but it's him saying that they believe that their best bet is to wear teams down with the pressure, and that they believe in it, and to make it really work, they have to play all 11 guys. And I know the fan base gets frustrated by it, because they're sometimes like, well, I don't want to see this guy in here or that guy in there, but why doesn't he just ride this guy? It's like, because they believe that the pressure is their strongest weapon. They believe that that's what wins them. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what could win them this series and every series going forward. They believe in the pressure, and the pressure requires fresh bodies to work, and that means digging deep in the bench.
Dustin Dopirak of the Indianapolis Star is our guest on the guest line here. Dustin, I probably asked you this before, but I always think it's a good perspective. So it's a two-part question. The first is, with this group, you were around them today, you were at shoot-around, you were around them yesterday after the game, etc. How would you describe their mood, their intensity, their looseness, etc.?
Really good fit for it. I think we're certainly not seeing them at practice, that kind of thing. We're seeing them at practice when they're done and they're just taking threes. But like combination of good amount of focus and good amount of looseness. Like they're confident, they have a little of swagger, but also like when they're in places to mess around and joke around, they're doing it. You know what I mean? They're still cracking jokes at each other in the locker room. They're not like sitting there silent and like, but they still like their comfort level with each other is so high. And I think we just talked to Miles Turner, and he was just like, we don't just have experience, we have experience together. And that is starting to show through. Like they've been through stuff. They can recall, games when this happened and games when that happened, and one of them had to step up, and this guy had to do this, and this guy had to do that. And they're just used to it. Like it's just there's a comfort level with this that wasn't there all the time last year. Last year they did come in with enough of a lose mentality, and that I think was helpful. But there were definitely some kind of, basically like roads that they came to, spots that they came to, those scenarios where they got busted up. But this time it's like every step is a step that they've taken, or that they've taken something close to it. That it's different being to start a series at home court like they did against Milwaukee, but it's only so different. Like it requires a change of flip, but there's something there that they can compare it to, that they can make kind of a flip of mentality, but they have an idea of where to start. And I think at every space they have an idea of where to start, so nothing feels like uncharted territory for them anymore.
Okay, so the second part of the question would be, in terms of their looseness and tightness, their demeanor, Give me the time this year that you felt it was the best, and give me the time this year where you felt like it was being most tested.
Wow. Oh, man. God, I got to go through the schedule. Like, obviously, it was most tested at the beginning of the year, the first 25 games when you're like, well, who are you? Who even are these guys? Where do they come from? And I think January is just when you started to see it flip over, and you started to see them get a sense of, I can't remember what game that I asked this to TJ McConnell after, it's like, I was like, what changed? He's like, I'm just really proud that we, held onto the rope when everybody was, letting it go. I think it was around Christmas. I think it was in Sacramento when I asked that question. Even then, you started to see it change. And really that entire stretch of late December, early January was playing some of their best basketball. And, I think there was some up and down after that. I think there was some really good highs after the All-Star break, especially when Tyrese Haliburton was playing out of his mind in those first 7 games, where you started to get the sense of, okay, they're really taking this to another notch. I don't think it's been there haven't been too many scenarios where it's been bad for an extended period since that midpoint in December. I think that stretch of practices where they got to get their minds right, after that 10 and 15 start, where they got some time with the NBA couple and they weren't part of it. They got a stretch of practices. They didn't have to play any games. You saw the mentality shift, and they finally kind of reconstituted themselves. And ever since then, I think it's been pretty steady and pretty good.
Now, it says here, I'm looking online, I didn't realize this, the Lakewood Howard Johnsons also has a family fun putt-putt center out back. Have you gone out and done that yet?
Terrific. Well, I can't wait, obviously. I haven't, but my God.
Now, so what is there?
I'm going to go show up at the Lakewood Howard Johnson just to knock on the door and say, I heard you have putt-putt.
I thought that's where you're staying. What is their schedule? For folks that don't know, the NBA, and I always loved the playoffs kind of for this reason. There was an element of fun to it in terms of like the downtime for players. But just take me through, like on a day off like today, when the Pacers are coming off that win, for the team itself, best you can tell in following them and being around them, their schedule today, if you will, consists of what?
I'm sure it's basically, they didn't practice. I'm sure they had a team meeting, film session, looked over everything. And as best I can tell right now, they're just chilling. So I've just seen them kind of go, Miles came in, we did the availability in their kind of buffet room, basically. And so Miles came in, got some food, filled up on some water, came, talked to us, took off. I think they did a meeting already. I think really with this group, I think the way the schedule has been, they've really tried to rest them in between. They haven't done a lot of in-between practice on the road this year, and they haven't done a lot of shoot-arounds either. It's been optional stuff and kind of take it easy because I think they've taxed themselves so much to maintain this level of pace and this level of pressure that when they give them an opportunity to take time to get off their legs, and get off their feet, they do it. And so they let them kind of chill out as much as they can. Certainly they had to do film and kind of look at what went wrong. And they did some of that in the first game to say, okay, well, what, too many points in the paint, too many second chance points. This has to get better. I get the impression they did that early. And, the rest of the day is just, as far as I know, just take it easy. They're going to have a team meal, I'm sure, at some point, spend some time together. But I think they try not to tax themselves, especially with this group, the way this year's gone.
That buffet room at the Hojo, fresh waffles. I'm telling you.
Exactly. The orange juice is divine as well.
Hey, what do you think of my Dustin? I don't know if you heard it. One of my
I did hear your answers.
Yeah, what do you?
I'm all right with that. I like the idea of pairing them together as something. I think it's interesting because they're not like similar. They're only so similar as personalities. But they have been just critical for these guys, and I think they've been they get easily looked over because I think you're so kind of waiting for this breakthrough between like Mathurin and Walker, and you see it in spurts, but I think it's like you kind of have to appreciate what's there and why aren't those two guys starting? Because Nembhard and Nesmith have been that good. They have been tremendous, and it's just at every stage they have given what they've been asked. And they've been even better when it's come to postseason play. They have raised their level of play up a notch. And so you got to continue to, I think if you're a Pacers fan, be appreciative of what those guys give you every night, but especially in the big ones.
And both of them just in big moments, just poised, cool
unfazed.
Dudes, right?
Entirely unfazed. Yeah. Drew in particular, it's like nothing. He notices nothing. I asked him, like, why do you think you're shooting it better? He's like, well, the ball's going in. It's like, okay. Don't take it any further. Smart decision on your part. Don't worry. Don't ask yourself. Just if it's going in, don't ask any further questions.
Very solid. All right, Dustin, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me always, guys.
All right, again, Dustin Dopirak from the Indianapolis Star. By the way, Eddie, I noticed this earlier. Now, you're a team player, right?
I'm always
you are
player.
the.
I am T.J. McConnell. We've established this.
Yeah, okay, you're T.J. McConnell, right?
With a much larger melon.
Now, I don't see T.J. When's the last time we had? I'm trying to think. There have been rumors of this. When's the last time we had an internal fight? Wasn't there?
I don't think you and I have ever really gotten into
the
it.
Pacers.
Oh.
You know, somebody busted a lip once, or like somebody broke their hand supposedly on punching another player. Maybe I'm thinking of IU.
Would that be
somebody broke their hand at IU for or like hurt their hand for punching Romeo Langford, right?
Stevenson and Hibbert?
That sounds right.
Bynum? Was he?
Yeah, I mean Bynum.
Evan Turner?
Yeah, the Evan Turner Bynum thing, that messed with Evan Turner. Evan Turner was never the same when he got here, especially after they got Bynum. I don't know what went on there, right? But you are the T.J. McConnell. Now, T.J. McConnell is not one that would be causing grief to anybody.
No.
But I have a weird feeling, an uncomfortable feeling, that you might have actually just created internal strife and a team fight within this team of the Fan.
Okay.
Worries me a little bit.
How did I do that?
I'll tell you in just a second, because I didn't notice it until a few minutes ago, and then I thought to myself, I think Eddie really stepped in it here. And I'm hoping that one of our other members of this radio station doesn't find out what you did, because I'm not saying that it was necessarily intentional, but it is somewhat egregious. And I'm not sure which team member it is that you just stepped on, but I think you did. So I'm going to stir the pot a little bit with that and let you know next. And we'll get back to talking about the Pacers on this Cinco de Mayo. By the way, you heard J&B is going to be Lafayette and Georgetown, right there, basically the intersection of the two. Very cool place. Alamo, is it Alamo Brewhouse or Alehouse Cinema?
Draft House.
Draft House. Alamo Draft House and Cinema. Very cool place, and the Delara simulator is going to be there. So this is not the simulators. I'm not talking about a video game. I mean, this is the real deal simulator that like Tony Kanaan uses and Montoya and those guys. I mean, these are the real deal. They are very sensitive, but it is exactly like driving, whether it be the road course or IMS or whatever else. I mean, this is like high-tech stuff. And you're going to be able to do that for free, enjoy a cold beer, Diet Coke, perfectly sufficient, and enjoy the show and celebrate Cinco de Mayo with J&V. He'll be there starting at 3 o'clock. I'll let you know what Eddie did that might require him to meet somebody over there for a peace offering next. Okay, by the way, JMV, on this Cinco de Mayo, what better way to celebrate it than to go down to Alamo Drafthouse Cinema right at Lafayette and Georgetown. West Side, going to be awesome. They got the Dolaris simulator there. Should be a ton of fun. Okay, let me tell you something that happened earlier on this program, and now it has me concerned for internal issue that we're going to have here at the Fan.
Okay, I'm interested to know what it is that I did. I don't know what I did.
So I had mentioned about the Pacers, and Don called the program and wanted to know where he can get a Why Not Indiana shirt. And so I said, well, the easiest thing to do is just get his phone number, and I will text him, the link. So you very nicely took a sheet of paper and wrote down the number, and so here I have Don's number. Don, who was delivering milk over to Firefly, and thank you again to everybody who helped out in raising money for the kids over at Firefly over the last month. And so I'm looking at the sheet of paper that you wrote on. I thought, okay, that's nice. I thought, well, it looks like there's something written on the other side. I flip it over, and in very cute, adorable children's handwriting is a thing that says, "Hi, Dad, I love you. Happy Easter." And I thought, oh, okay, so either Mark Dykton or perhaps Kevin Bowen, but I think Dykton because he sits over there near you. You're sitting in the seat that Dykton vacates when he leaves. So one of Mark Dykton's daughters, and he's got like 9, but one of his daughters was kind enough and smart enough and thoughtful enough to make Mark an Easter card, a handmade, literally the kind of possession that I would imagine a parent cherishes forever. Enough so that Mark brought, or Kevin, but I think Mark brought said homemade Easter card into work, probably as motivation, reminder why you do this every day. In the case of Dykton, why are you getting up at 4:30 every morning and coming in here and working and cutting audio and eating Fruity Pebbles and whatever else he eats in the morning with his big bowls there? And, why do you work your way through as a Bears fan? Why do you get up in the morning after watching another Bears game? This is why, because I have these daughters that remind me, and so I'm going to put this little note right here as a note to myself, as a reminder of all that's important in the world. Perspective is what it is, right? Perspective. And now that perspective, while admittedly it's not on the front that it's openly defaced, but when you look at the back, you're just turning other people's little cherishable love notes into your own just personal Rolodex sheet. Right?
Now, if I'm being honest, that side was not up. First. Second,
okay,
if it was that, loved and it had that much meaning to Mark Dykton, why is he leaving it on the desk back here?
I think I just explained that.
And furthermore, if this was from Easter, that's like, what, 3 weeks ago?
Memories last forever, Eddie.
Why the heck is it over here and not at his
last
desk?
Forever, right?
I'm just saying I'm not at fault here.
Mementos last forever. And then now your buddy Alec, your one friend?
Yep.
Alec has chimed in.
Okay.
Hopefully Eddie didn't do this egregiously. He needs help making more friends, not chasing away potential ones. Yes. Yes. Right?
Sure.
I get it. Nick says, you're clearly not a parent. We get way too many kid notes. Makes for good note paper. I get it. I mean, I do know that. Do you know? Now, I'm not going to say any names here because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But I have a friend, one of my favorite families that I've known in my, in a lifetime of enrichment with people very, just colorful characters and personalities in my life. One of my favorite childhood friends, his family, just a funny, funny family. And he is the youngest of 4. And when his father passed, they were like going through his possessions and like, what is this? And it was literally a huge box. And it was all of their respective like refrigerator artwork and school, everything they'd ever done, saved in a box that said, I have intentionally saved this to give to all of you upon my passing, so now it's your turn to figure out what in the hell you're supposed to do with all of this stuff. So, no, I get it. But I did think it was funny that here's this little note, and then on the back of it, it's like, it literally, here's the other thing, Eddie. It looks like you're just writing down phone numbers in like you're at a bar. You're just writing down phone numbers on a sheet of paper, like, here you go. Give me a jingle, give me a ring, right?
I didn't have any other pieces of paper over here. That looked like it was on the back of like a receipt you get at a grocery store or something. Doesn't look like a typical piece of paper.
Fair enough. Now, you said you did not watch the Kentucky Derby?
No, I did not. I was working.
Did you watch it afterwards? Muddy affair.
I did. I'm upset. Neither one of us got our trifecta correct.
Build your own joke, as many have, over the fact that sovereignty defeated journalism. But the Derby is amazing. I mean, it's kind of a bucket list thing to do. But now, of course, it runs. Do you know anybody that went to Rev?
No, I do not. Well, Joey Molinaro, I saw that.
Because the weather wasn't great for Rev. I mean, I think it's a great looking event. It looks awesome. Like they have it, they have it set up when you go down for the mini and you run past it. And I would love to go to the Derby sometime, but I know for a lot of people, the Derby being on the same day as the mini, which it's going to be every year, so it's going to be a while before I can do that. But I would imagine there are some people in central Indiana that would love to go to the Kentucky Derby but do not do so because they go to Rev. Because it's kind of the same. I mean, it's the same style of event, right? The hats and the whole deal. Pretty neat, though, for sure. Like I said, J&B is out for Cinco de Mayo at the, let me get it right, because I know it's a newer establishment, but it's fabulous, Alamo Drafthouse Cinema.
That is correct.
Lafayette and Georgetown.
Nice job.
We will hand it off and over to him here in just a bit. We'll come back and put a tie on all of it on this Cinco de Mayo as we roll along on this Pacers, I almost said Colts, Pacers Victory Monday on the Fan. Annihilators is pretty good, too, on the nickname for the A.N. brothers. Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nembhard, 2 critical pieces for the Pacers for sure. And it's been fun. Now, boy, your mind does start to race, doesn't it, when they get up 1-0 on Cleveland and you think, gosh, if they dispatched the number one. I know the Cavs are the number 1 seed. I still feel like Boston's the best team in the East and that's the biggest obstacle. But am I too paranoid there, Eddie? I mean, not to put the cart before the horse here. A lot of basketball to be played, right?
There's still a lot of basketball. Yes. I mean, they're hopefully going to get, if you're Cleveland, you're hoping that Darius Garland is back soon. But even still, like the Pacers won by 9 and Cleveland made their fewest amount of threes in a game. Like it took all of that for the Pacers to win.
Correct.
In Cleveland.
You're right.
So it's just like, okay, how does it look if Cleveland has a somewhat average night shooting, threes, and how does Indiana look if they're not shooting over 50% from 3? Like, how does it all play out?
But, man, they've done the one thing so far they need to do, right?
Yep.
And they come back and take care of business at home. They're in really good shape. I mean, really good shape. I think I mentioned earlier, this is an interesting phenomenon. During the mini on Saturday.
Okay.
So you start out, and I'll tell you the marathon, the mini route. You start out right here on Washington Street. And I realize because we are moving buildings, here in the fall. So this is the last time that I'll have the opportunity to park basically at the start-finish line of the mini marathon, which is the greatest thing ever. But we go out, you start, and then you immediately go on Washington Street, and it hooks around there to the left, and you go past the bridge or past the over the bridge and past the zoo, okay? And that's fun. And then, although when you pass the zoo, and this was certainly the case this year, sometimes the elephants are gassy.
Really?
And so you're running along and you're trying to catch your wind, and then you're like, whoa.
Then you're really trying to catch your wind.
That's correct. A little bit malodorous there. Somebody, let them know. The pachyderms are a pack of germs here. Let's go. Like, So you keep going, and then you snake around and you go up, and I always forget what street it is, but you work your way up towards Michigan Street. And, it's White River Parkway. You go up White River Parkway, and then you take a left on Michigan Street. And when you take that left, the wheelchair racers are already, because they start like 30 minutes ahead of you, and they're obviously very, very fast and unbelievable athletes. They're already making the turn coming back down to go across the bridge back towards, so they're like at mile 12. Then you're thinking to yourself, holy cow. The stretch between where you make that turn and then you just kind of work your way around up towards the south corner of Main Street and Speedway. That stretch, I think, is the toughest stretch. So it's mile 2 to like 4.5. You're just kind of, your body's trying to figure out whether or not you're going to do this or not. And it's not the most scenic of area. And it's not even really a residential area. So you don't have like neighbors, people that are out, cheering you on. And it's wonderful how the people on 10th Street in particular, when you come out of the Speedway and you go down Holt Road and you go on 10th Street from Holt Road all the way to Military Park, 80% of the people in those homes are out and they're cheering for you and they're waving, or their kids are out giving you a high five. It really is a neat deal. But that mile 2 to 4 stretch is pretty brutal and boring. And you're going over train tracks and rock, it's just bleh. But I got super nauseous. And I thought to myself, taking my medicine on an empty stomach, well, I mean, I had like a banana and a
but not in your tailpipe,
Cliff
right?
Bar. That's what's that? Say it again, please.
No banana.
I'm not going to fall for what?
The banana in your tailpipe, huh?
So I started getting super nauseous, and then I thought to myself, you know what? I may just recycle here. That maybe that'll like lighten me up. But you fight through that, and then get to the speedway. And I love the speedway aspect of it because you're running on the track. I mean, it's great. And for a lot of people, I think it's daunting because they don't realize how big it is. But I spend so much time there and I work there, so I have a feeling for it and a reality for it. So you do that, and then you come out and you go across 10th Street. And right when we came out of the speedway and you make the little turn down Oleo Road to get back onto 10th, and then you take 10th all the way across, I suddenly got the hungriest I have ever been in my life. I mean, it was like literally, I was absolutely starving. I was so hungry. And then you start getting driven by, I can't wait until we get done. And they have all the, the Meyer has set up like all of the food tables and cookies and of course chocolate milk and everything else. And I'm not saying that it means that we didn't do a great time, but I think most of that, by the time we got through the metal area and everything else, the people that set up the food had just put a bunch of boxes of food on the table like, we're out of here. And I looked it up, and I think there were, I don't know how many runners there were in the Mini this year, but it said it was sold out, which I think means there were 30,000. I could be wrong in that. But I looked it up, and our overall was like 14.5. So like right at, and I think I was like right midway pack for my age group. But it was a ton of fun. Had a great time with it, and then went home, chilled out for. It was the perfect weather, not only to run, but also to go home and not do anything. Just like yesterday was the perfect weather and temperature for just chilling out and getting everything set as I did yesterday. Not that anybody cares, but I will tell you, this is how neurotic I am. Once the track opens for the race, now not for the Sancio Grand Prix, so I still have, so the track schedule is going to be at the Speedway. You will have track activity Friday for the Grand Prix, and then the Grand Prix being on Saturday. Then open on Sunday, closed on Sunday, closed on Monday. Things get underway for the 500 on a week from tomorrow, on Tuesday. So the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday qualifying, Sunday qualifying. I literally yesterday already laid out, I washed like the 6 IndyCar radio shirts that I have for this year because they change year to year. The 6 that I have for this year, and I washed 6 pair of pants, and I literally laid them all out so that, boom, they are all hanging and ready to go. So I can just go one to the next, put them in the laundry and go, because it is a whirlwind. I love everything about it. It's busy as hell, but starting a week from tomorrow, between that and the Indianapolis 500 is the greatest 10 or 12 days or whatever of the year. I love everything about it. I look forward to it. And it starts out with the Mini of just a civic celebration. And for the Pacers to get that win and the Fever to get that win yesterday, and I mean, obviously it was an exhibition, but for Caitlin Clark to hit that big shot in front of her home fans and to get people excited about that, everything about it's awesome. I just hope so much that the Pacers playoff run continues. I mean, obviously I'd love to see them go to the finals, but at least continues through to where, at the minimum, the practice days of the Indy 500, because it's just so cool to have Pacers and racers. Love everything about it. Now, Eddie, did you tell me that you're going to the race now, right?
Yes, sir.
It's yes, sir, or yes, sirs.
In this case, it's yes, sir.
Okay, fair enough. And are you doing anything fun and exciting for Cinco de Mayo?
Nothing in plans yet. Olivia's still sleeping from working this morning, so I haven't been able to touch base with her to see what she wants to do.
Okay. Well, I've got an idea on what you can do. You can go to the Alamo Drafthouse and Cinema over at Lafayette and Georgetown. You can do the Dallara Simulator. You can enjoy an awesome venue with the Cinco de Mayo celebration. You can do it by listening to J&V. Diet Coke's perfectly sufficient if you so choose. But he is up next. He will carry you home on this Pacer Victory Monday, Cinco de Mayo, and we will be back with you at noon tomorrow. Eddie Gill joining us to find out what adjustments the Pacers might need for game number 2. We'll do it tomorrow. We thank you for listening to Query & Company.